Hello and welcome to Stephen University. This week we are revisiting Bubble Buddies. Yay!
Wait, but we don't know when this will air. So if something's just broken, like on the Monday before this goes up, and we don't mention it, it's because we're slightly, from our perspective, we've just had the new poster and stuff for Days of Diamonds. Is it called
Diamond Days?
Diamond Days. That's it. So
hopefully you guys have already heard us discussing that. But basically,
this is just bank.
We've banked this one ahead of the trailer reveal because we're hoping to do the poster and the trailer in the same video. So we're waiting to record that one. So in the gap, we're recording this just to bank one for future reference. So yeah, anyway that's behind the scenes stuff no one cares about.
But just in case, just to stop anyone, if something's just happened, stop anyone in the comments being like, weird that you didn't mention this at all. That's why. That's the context in which we're recording.
We're recording this in like the 22nd of November. So all we have at the moment is the reveal of the new dates and stuff from where we're recording this. But you will hopefully have already heard us discuss that in a previous episode. Yeah. From our perspective, the last thing we recorded was the ships episode.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just pleased to not have to do anything for this recording.
Yeah, 2 in a row where it was very much down to you.
Apart from watch the episode.
And I mean, I suppose very quickly before we get into to Bubble Buddies, in regards to the ship stuff, there was 2 points I wanted to make very quickly in response to some of the comments we got.
Would that not be on the... Would you not do that on the next one we record, though? Because that'll be the next one that goes up.
Oh, yeah. That's already been done, then. Yeah. I've already done my bits of business.
All right, well, let's just get that straight to You've had Dan's bits. You've had some analysis. You're all good.
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do Bubble Buddies, then. So, Bubble Buddies, for those of you who don't remember, is the episode in which Stephen first meets Connie. Basically, he's trying to get her attention and, it's sort of cycle past her when basically an earthquake causes a rock to fall off a nearby cliff. He leaps to save her, and his bubble forms for the first time, but he then doesn't know how to stop it, and he's sort of trapped. He and Connie are trapped together inside the bubble, and it becomes a question of how they get out. It then sort of leads to this thing where they bump into the thing that caused the earthquake, which is a gem monster that is then sort of chasing them. They get out of the bubble, and Stephen saves the day with his prodigious smarts for once.
I think I honestly, genuinely think that was one of the worst recaps we've ever had on this show, Dan. Lots of lots of R's. I'm not sure you watched the episode, dude, if I'm honest.
Would you like me to try again?
That's all good. Do you want me to show?
No, it's just that's worse, Chris, because that's basically going, get out of here. Let professional do his job. Let me handle business.
I think the only thing you missed is the fact that they end up underwater, and then Stephen reveals that he had her bracelet all along, which he found from a parade last time. And he kind of makes the point that he can be her friend. And then they share a nice moment. And that's what ultimately breaks the bubble. So they have to swim back up out the ocean. And Stephen outsmarts the monster by making it loop and tie itself in a knot. I just think that's a key detail, Dan. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Just thought I'd add it.
Just hurts when someone... backseat podcasting. Just like, that's not how we do it, Dan. Let me take the wheel. Let the professional handle it. I've recapped more of these than you have now. Fuck off.
Yeah, but you're already recapping them because I'm fed up of recapping them.
Well, if you're so fed up of recapping them, how about you just leave me to it, Chris, instead of your backseat recapping?
That doesn't mean that I want section of the podcast to fall to the quality that it was today. That's all.
I mean, it just hurts. It just hurts.
I assume any new episodes, when we eventually get them, I will recap them, and you just recap the rewatches.
I mean, once again, it's like you're intentionally trying to hurt my feelings here. Like, don't worry, guys. The important ones, the new ones, I'll be doing. I won't be leaving them to this chump over here.
I can't wait
I
for the
think you need to
recaps,
stop. I think you need to stop digging this hole, Chris, because it's getting deeper, and I ain't throwing you a fucking rope, unless it's to hang yourself with.
No. It's the hole's only deeper if you assume I care about upsetting you. Like for me, it's not even a hole, baby. It's barely a dent. I'm looking forward to the recap because these are obviously episodes that important things happen in them. Like when the hiatuses are so lengthy and we have to we've like gone through the season, the series rewatching, and we're then rewatching like just the episodes where nothing really happens. Those are the recaps I want. Just they get the gem, guys. We don't know when season 7's airing, man.
I'm like, yeah, I am sort of thinking like right now we have like we almost have too much stuff planned, so people are going like, when's Honey
We Shrunk.
Yeah, Honey We Shrunk Steven University, and when's Over the Garden Wall now? Over the Garden Wall got usurped by Doctor Who, sadly. Which is frustrating, but like Doctor Who is sort of more current, so we can get away with doing that and then Over the Garden Wall, I think. Because I think even when these new episodes are airing, we'll probably already discuss this, but they're looking like one a week, unless they do a drop on the app. So like that's still only one a week. So we'll still have the Thursday slot or the late week slot open for another thing. So we'll continue to do Doctor Who alongside that, and then go Over the Garden Wall alongside stuff going forward. So it's kind of working out at the moment. The plan is ahead, like, and then as soon as Over the Garden Wall's finished, I think we'll probably do our week-long bomb of all of the Honey I Shrunk stuff that we can find.
That doesn't necessarily mean, just before anyone gets too excited, that doesn't necessarily mean Over the Garden Wall will drop the week Doctor Who finishes, because that'll be Christmas and madness. But yeah, it should hopefully be soon. But the slot that we would be recording that in, we've been recording Doctor Who in.
Early next year, I would say, like sort of January, February, maybe, assuming.
Hopefully, yeah.
I think that's currently a reasonable, which is I'm sad about, because we were like talking about that as being part of our hiatus content, and the hiatus, which is one of the longest the show's ever experienced, is now nearly over, and we're not at it yet, which is nuts. But we've been very busy.
But I think we like I'm really I think, and we really will discuss Bubble Buddies in a minute. But I think like the ship episode went down pretty well. The theory episode went down really well. We had the Zach Callison interview. I think if you'd have said to us, these are the episodes you will do instead, we'd be like, oh, okay, I can see why Over the Garden Wall didn't happen. Like, at the end of the day, I think we've done better Steven University content and Steven Universe content. So I think it's fine.
Well, I think we've done stuff we didn't expect we'd get to do. I think that's what's really cool. And, now there's just that elusive Rebecca Sugar interview to happen,
Well, let's hope she's not listening to this. Like, why would I go to a podcast where the two hosts just shit on each other about their skills recapping the show?
No shit on each other, Chris. That was one way. I just want to make it clear that at no point did I insult you during the opening of this podcast.
That's true.
I acknowledge you're very good at recapping.
Oh, cheers, mate. I acknowledge that when you want to put the effort in, you are also really good at recapping.
Answer that, because that's true. Right, okay. You know what it is? What it was is I recapped Bubble Buddies the first time we did it, and I listened to that this morning, and it was quite a succinct recap, and I remember thinking to myself, that was a pretty good recap. I don't know if I'm going to be able to beat that, and I was trying to think of a way to be more succinct but still get the detail, and it just threw me. It really, like, I had myself to beat. What I might do is just edit in the original recap.
I was going to say.
Because it was better. All right, fine. Anyway, moving on. So Bubble Buddies. So I mean, initial thoughts on the rewatch, Chris? How did you feel about it? Because this was because you're. I mean, not to spoil what we'll get to later, but you were obviously coming off the back of Cat Fingers when you originally watched this. So this was a breath of fresh air to you when you watched it originally, because you were just like, oh, this is so much better than what we saw last week. So, without Cat Fingers being as big a factor.
Although, ironically, still the last episode of this show I watched, but yeah.
Yes, but you now know with confidence that the show is more good than bad.
Oh yeah.
So like, because I think with Cat Fingers the first time, part of it was just like, oh god, I've only seen like 6 or 7 of these, and like a percentage of them have been this irritating. So what am I in for? Whereas obviously now Cat Fingers is just like a little for you a little blip on the radar. So without the worry of the show being that forever, and you having to watch 120 odd episodes of Cat Fingers, how did this fare worse in the light of it, or did it come out across okay? How did it work for you?
No, the one really unique thing I will say off the back of the relationship discussion is just how much actually Steven's nervousness around her and the way he's trying to impress her with his bike and planning what he's saying to her, like the love relationship, couple aspect of it, the fancying someone, having a crush on someone aspect is totally there.
Yes.
Like really present. When you rewatch it, it really is like, oh, okay. I thought it was cool how the stuff about her dad being a security guard was embedded so early on.
Yeah, I'd forgotten they embedded that quite as early as they did. They don't clarify what her mum does, but but to be fair, they even hint at that slightly when she talks about donuts having trans fats, because obviously her mum being a doctor, you'd be like, yeah, that's a thing
we'll
her mum
know
would
that
know.
exact term. Yeah. I thought the onion bit was really funny.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that gag was brilliant. I love that this is one of those episodes where, like, it really, it's one of those episodes where you go, was that really only 11 minutes? Because you got Stephen with the gems and Stephen trying to impress Connie, then the bubble, and then they try and get the bubble out of the bubble in a number of ways, and then they go in the ocean, and then they go deeper in the ocean, and then they fight the monster, and everything has time. And then the flashback. Everything has time.
Yeah, that is kind of weird because you're right. It's 11 minutes, but you've just named more than 11 things. I mean, not literally, but the sections of this episode they all feel like they have dedicated enough time to them, but it's like, but you can't figure out how. It's like sometimes these episodes are like the television equivalent of a TARDIS. You just go like, how did they cram all that in to 11 minutes and it not feel super rushed?
Definitely. And they cram a lot into this. And visually, I thought it was great. I thought the monster, it's very Star Wars-esque, the monster.
Yeah.
But
not their best design. Agreed.
But I thought the monster was good. I thought all the character stuff between the two of them was good. I was really I'd completely forgotten just how good this episode was, and I think I got in a way so much pleasure back from the rewatch because I think the onion stuff probably landed a bit more, and I think I felt more warmly towards Connie because of the character she becomes and that informing everything. And it's good. It was upsetting when she said she was lonely, because I know her better, and yeah.
Yeah, and I 100% caught that as well. And I think what's really cool is this is one of those examples where a character is different to how they've become in the show, but it doesn't feel like a betrayal or like a inconsistency. It feels like growth because she's still her core is Connie, but her situation is different and it's affecting the way she is interacting with the world. And it doesn't feel like an inconsistency at all. In fact, it feels like genius writing because you look at the confidence she's gained and the way she's grown. Her characterization is still the same, but the way she interacts with the world outwardly is informed heavily by her new circumstances. So again, it doesn't feel like they've sort of because that happens a lot in TV. You go back to an old episode and a character acts in a way you're just like, it doesn't really fit that character, and it's like, well, the early episodes they hadn't really figured out how that character would behave yet, and it's it's not by design, it's just by accident until they figure them out. This is very much an example of like really clever, very thought out writing where they knew the route they were taking Connie from minute one, and they had to establish her first as this slightly isolated kind of nerdy kid that had an inner badass somewhere in there that was one day gonna come out, and it tracks so beautifully that it gives this episode even more weight on a rewatch, I think, than a lot of the other episodes we've been back to so far.
Definitely, and I think it's really subtle, but like her excitement and her being so enamored with Stephen and
Yes.
how he defeated the monster definitely show an indication that she's not going to be afraid to get stuck in with that and that kind of thing, because she doesn't even have. I'd have a lot more questions if an 11-year-old boy landed on me and produced an impenetrable bubble.
Yeah.
Like I just wouldn't accept I'm half magic as an answer.
Yeah,
I'd be I need more.
I'm magic. Well, half magic. I'm my mother's side, which is a great
Yeah,
gag.
I'd be like, I need more fucking details, dude.
But
like,
I
this
think
is weird.
that kind of tracks into a running joke in these early episodes, though, that the world is just slightly more accepting of gem stuff because they've had the planet has been covered in gem stuff and weird gem anomalies its entire from through most of human history. Even though a lot of it was hidden away, we both know that there are gems all over the globe, corrupted ones.
Yeah.
So magic and
Yes,
weird stuff can't be a complete shock to the so there's this subtle undertone of weird shit happens regularly and they just go, okay, like the townspeople generally.
The bigger undertone is weird shit happens in Beach City, and her reaction to the boats and the dock and Funland make it clear that she's never really explored Beach City.
Correct.
So
yeah.
I still would assume there would be slightly more surprise.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's true. I think it's partly plot convenience that they've done that idea of everyone just sort of accepts it, because having to re-explain everything every week would be tedious. But in Connie's part, you're right. I suppose there should be some more reaction to that, but she does go along with it quite willingly, doesn't she? Magic boy, cool, got it.
Yeah. So, okay.
Right. And then my favourite is when she's just like, well, how long does this bubble thing usually last? And it's like, well, I don't know. This is new. I don't really know. Like, I would have more questions even at that point. Like, what do you mean this is new? How did you produce a bubble? Like, yeah, you're right. There are a lot more moments where you'd argue she should be asking questions she's not asking. And there obviously the reference.
But I think it.
Go on.
But it plays as, for me anyway, it plays into her then future kickassery and excitement.
Yeah. Her and also her future willingness to be so involved in gem stuff. Because I think interestingly it informs it in a way I didn't think of before. Because I always thought of Connie as being like someone who sort of by circumstance was thrust into this gem world by her friendship with Stephen. But this episode frames it in a slightly different context for me and makes me feel like Connie was always this person who was a badass, but her life was so straightforward. And I mean, dull is not the right word, but maybe dull. Maybe her parents seem to have encapsulated her a little bit. She doesn't have many friends. She doesn't have much of a social life. Like she feels quite enclosed as a character and quite isolated. And that you think so maybe it's not that this idea that she got thrust into the world of gem stuff, but like the world of gem stuff was just so exciting to her, she thrust herself into it rather than being sucked into it because of gem stuff. Does that make sense? Because this is the exciting alternative to what her life was prior to meeting Stephen.
Yeah, and I think you definitely get that vibe and get that notion watching this as a rewatch.
Yeah, and I don't think that necessarily comes through otherwise, because I think when you watch it, it just looks like this person slowly being sucked into the sort of world of the gems, and through her friendship wanting to defend Stephen, and that's why she gets involved in some of the more dangerous stuff. But in reality, I think that was an escape for her. I don't think she was, I don't get the impression she was very happy in her life prior to meeting Stephen. And then it also then puts their relationship into question, because what's she really in it for?
Which I suppose is almost the counter argument to the ship.
Yeah, well, other than a few people took exception to the ship in general because of age, but that's a different concern. I guess we'll discuss or have discussed as one of the points.
Yeah, I referred to Stephen as 11 earlier. That's wrong, isn't it? At this stage, isn't he like 9 or something? Or how old's he?
I can't remember how old he's supposed to be at this exact point. I honestly can't remember. I don't think he ever is quite as young as 9.
Right. Okay.
I don't think. You know, that's a great question.
Sure.
I refer to the listeners who I'm sure have got a timeline somewhere figured out.
Yeah. Fair enough.
As always, our listeners
sorry,
are smarter than we
that
are.
just you saying timeline just made me think about one of my favorite news stories of this week, where Marvel released a timeline hoping to clear up the whole Spider-Man Homecoming thing and just created a world of further continuity issues. Anyway.
You know what? Like, that was absolutely Sony's fault. Fucking Sony, man. Sony insisted on the so many years later card, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Just later?
Leave it vague. Yeah, thank you. Later would be perfect.
Or just modern day.
Yeah. Today
Anyway.
Today would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So
because there is a thing, like, you know, it's what we talked about before. They often say after a big breakup, the next person isn't the person you know, it's the person after that person that you'll go on to marry. Most people's first intense, big, long relationships aren't then, you know, the ones they end up in. And it's almost like, is it a friendship because she needs Stephen to get her out of her shell and make her this kick-ass thing, but that makes him the best friend as opposed to the boyfriend?
Yeah, agreed. It's kind of, it is like, it's certainly, I understand the opposition to the ship, if that makes sense. I really do understand why people take exception to it. Even beyond the age thing, I think there are reasonable doubts people have about whether they should be together, and I think it's totally acceptable to see them as purely platonic friendship. I think the show's done as much for that as it has for the other, but you can't say that it hasn't at all coded in some relationshipy stuff. Their relationship is built on the tropes of relationships. From this first meeting onwards, you know, it's trying to impress the girl, you know, don't interrupt my funky flow. Like, he's talking about chatting up a girl, like he is. That's what he's talking about. Like, there can be no question about that. Like, and all he knew about Connie was he saw her, and then followed after her, then found the ring, and then kept the ring, the glow stick ring thing, the bracelet, and then like, you know, and kept it for her to give back to her. Now you could argue the counter to that is, oh, Stephen, you like her. I like everyone, which is a great line and really pushes Stephen's innocence 100%. But you can't say that they're not coding these interactions with the tropes of a boy meets girl relationship. You know, everything from here going right forward through to the, oh, she's not texting me, you know, like, situation we get later on. Like, their relationship is littered with archetypes and tropes of a romantic relationship, whether that's just designed to sort of like be like part of the, not joke, but part of the premise is that it comes across like a romantic relationship, but it's because they're so innocent and so young, it's playing out like that for a friendship. And if that's the intention, fine. But I basically, what I'm getting at is, I don't think anybody is outright wrong to say that they see it just as a friendship, and I don't think anybody is outright wrong to say they see it as a relationship, because I think there is evidence of both built into it, and I think to deny the other is where it gets wrong. When someone goes, it's absolutely not, that's when I'm like, well, you're not paying attention, and that's to both sides. So when the people are going, it's absolutely not a romantic relationship, they're not looking at like the possibility that is clearly evident in the and when people are saying it's absolutely not a friendship, then they're ignoring the other elements of it. So I think I think there is evidence of both, and until the show goes one way or the other with it, for sure, we can continue to debate it. For me, it's this episode is proof of exactly how both sides are right and wrong at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I have a question for you, Dan.
Sure. Love a question.
In this scenario, you're single, like you and Nadia have parted ways.
Sure.
You've lost your senses and she's come to hers, you know, whatever.
Correct.
I'm joking, that just seemed like too good a burn. I apologise.
No, that's exactly how it would have to play out. The only way that relationship ends up is that she basically realizes what she's done. and wisely runs away. There should really every day there should be a Nadia-shaped hole in the wall where she has, in a Roadrunner fashion, just right broke through and just run away.
I think, Dan, that you don't know how good you are. But anyway.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, not good enough to do the
Sweet.
intro, but, the recap, but that's fine.
Yeah, but that Nadia's not with you for your recaps.
Right. Well, that's what you think. She walks in every day, she's like, what did you watch on TV today? Recap it for me. It's the basis of our entire relationship.
If she wanted to listen to you fucking ramble about television, she'd listen to the podcast, mate.
Which she definitely does not do.
She doesn't do. So you're not with Nadia. You're in a club, or you're wherever you choose to set the scenario.
Sure.
You see a girl that you like.
Mm-hmm.
What does Dan Doolan's funky flow look like? What's your
in a club?
How are you gonna? Well, no, say not in a club. You're in the street. No, you're buying. Right, you're both queuing in a donut shop, right, to buy some donuts, and you see someone you like,
right,
and you think, I've got to initiate.
Where's my
some
funky
flow here?
I got to get some funky flow.
What does your funky flow
because
look like?
Because I've got to say, in a club situation, my funky flow is non-existent. I will run the other way. That is not the situation I want to meet anyone. And I say it like when I was younger, before I met Nadia, I was at the Students' Union in Stockport. Stockport represent, and I realized how quickly, like how important confidence was to those situations. When a girl walked in, and I thought she was a friend of mine, so I did the that like as a joke, like I pointed at myself, did the eyes thing, and then pointed at her, like in Meet the Parents, because there was like a running joke about that with my friend, with my actual friend. But the problem was, this wasn't my friend. This was just someone who looked like her. But it came across as the most confident move in the world. She walked into the room and I was like, I'm watching you. Like, straight away. She then approached me later that night and I was like, that was too easy. Like, apparently confidence is all you ever need, ever.
Yeah. I think I've told the story on the podcast before, but I remember going out at like 20 years old and I had a friend who was like, you just need to be confident, mate. Just need to be confident. I was like, oh, fuck off. And then I watched him go. He went, because there was a group of us. And me, I was less bothered and enamoured about, talking to people in clubs. I'm with you. It's never really been a scenario that suits me. So I wasn't asked, but I had friends that were. And he, to prove a point to them, and I'm not exaggerating here, went up to every single table in the club and got a phone number from everyone. Like, it's crazy. And then he was like, you got to be confident, you got to be cocky. And me and my friend, I think if I've told the story, I apologise. Me and my friend then requested Boyzone when the going gets tough. Boyzone are an Irish boy band.
You have told the story. This is an amazing story.
Okay, so I will make it very quick. And then I have a funky flow in a sandwich shop story instead, which I don't think I've told. This girl who was beautiful was dancing and really enjoying it. So I went up to her afterwards and was like, "Oh, saw you dance in a Boyzone." She was like, "Yeah." I was like, I requested that. And she went, okay. And I went, well, I just think you can say thank you. And she went, all right, thanks. And gave me a kiss on the cheek. And I went, I've had better thank yous or something like that. And I walked off and I was like, oh my God, like I felt disgusting. I was like, oh, that's not me. I genuinely believe like you should just be yourself with people. Like, because if you're not yourself, it ain't going to last anyway.
Worth noting, this is 20-year-old Chris. This is like 10
years
ago,
yeah.
Chris.
This is not the person I am now. I'll say that in a sec. And she came back up to me, gave me this massive kiss on the lips, and just went, "Thank you," and then walked off. And my mate Phil went, "What happened there?" And I went, "I have no idea." And that to this day is still the smoothest I've ever been in a nightclub. That story fundamentally involves "When the Going Gets Tough" by Irish boy band Boyzone.
Yep.
If anyone out there is single, be yourselves. I met Jess speed dating, and she sat down, and I looked at her and went, she's so beautiful and amazing and everything I think I want, but she's never going to date me. I'm a moron, so I'm just going to be completely myself, because then at least I'll know that I got rejected on honest grounds, as opposed to trying too hard and failing and, getting rejected because I said something stupid. So she sat down, and instead of asking her all the usual questions that people had been asking her all night, what did she do, where did she work, where did she live, I went, what's your favourite cheese? And then she answered Wensleydale and Wednesday. What am I thinking? Wensleydale with like the bits of apricot in. And I berated her for that cheese because I don't like fruit in cheese. And now we're getting married. So be yourself.
I feel like I should have undertoned that story with ukulele. Just do, just like build up really beautiful, like.
I think it was Wensleydale and apricot. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you've got that right, because if you haven't, that's shit.
I know, I can't remember the fruit. It was Wensleydale, but I can't remember what fruit was in it. But anyway.
To answer your actual direct question,
funky flow.
My funky flow doesn't exist to the point where I would do what all British people do when there's someone they're interested in, which is if they don't know them already, embarrassingly ignore them as best possible. Or if it's someone I have a vague in with because I know them in like a friend of a friend capacity, then you can sort of, what you do is the British technique is not to ask someone out on a date as the Americans do, which is very overt and far too admitting of any interest that for my taste. I would just do what all British people do, which is just force myself into their life until they just I just wear them down.
No, but what are you saying to her in the donut shop? What's your Stephen Bike?
My point is that if I didn't already know this person, then I wouldn't. I would just. It would be maybe an awkward smile if eyes meet. Otherwise, it would be just a that sits where it sits. I don't have funky flow, Chris. This is why I'm very lucky to have managed to have essentially trick Nadia into being with me for as long as I have. Because keep in mind, and people always go, trick her? What do you mean you tricked her? When Nadia started going out with me, I was skinny, I had long hair, I was in a fucking band. Like, I was it was different. It was quite different. This isn't what she quite got herself into. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like she'd have a genuine court case with Ofcom about, like, falsely advertising goods.
I think it's cranberries in the Wensleydale.
Dear.
I've been in that scenario, or my equivalent, not a donut shop, but I was single and in the sandwich aisle at M&S, which is a supermarket in the UK, and I love sandwiches, and this woman started talking to me. Like, we caught eyes and kind of smiled, and then she just went, "Yeah, I can't decide what to have either." And I was like, "Oh," and I was so in my head, like, "What is happening here?" And I went, "Oh, what are your options?" And she went, "Oh, I'm thinking about this one, but I, it's got a lot of calories in it, and I want to be able to fit through the door after I've had my lunch." And I should have said something about how she didn't need to worry, she looked great, or something like that. But I just said something like, "Oh, well, if you're worried about calories, then they do a nice salad," or something like that.
Oh, dear.
Just awful.
The opposite of funky flow. That is unfunky.
Very
flow.
Opposite.
No.
Very opposite. Anyway, back to this.
So the first thing that I made notes of that I wanted to talk about was the Lars and Sadie gag. Was two of them. First of all, I laughed so hard at Sadie coming out of the big donut, having gone to get something, and just coming out with a chair and smashing it. That gag is just amusing as hell, because you think she's gone in to get like a tool or something smarter than that. She just comes out with a chair and smashes it on the thing, which is just so good, especially in the light of her and Lars arguing about it. It's like her getting out her frustrations. But I just love, are you sure these two are friends? They're crazy about each other.
Yeah,
that line is so indicative of the Lars and Sadie relationship.
Yeah, it was very good.
So good.
What? Go on. What was the other one?
And the other one was the moment you've already talked about, which I think we talked about in the original podcast, which is the moment the bubble. The moment that the harpooning the bubble gag, which it's just timed so perfectly when the harpoon bounces off the bubble and takes out the ship. It's brilliant.
Was there anything of note about in the original? If I was enamored, I suppose there's nothing. There's no angry rants or anything.
There are a couple of notes that I thought were interesting. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that you've already pointed it out, but the moment the bubble popped was in the moment he and Connie agreed to be friends. I like the idea that he had subconsciously trapped them in there until he made her his friend. I just love that notion.
I like the idea that...
I mean, it's kind of creepy when you think about it, but the idea that it happens subconsciously is...
No, I don't view it as that. I personally, I get it. I absolutely think it could be that. But my personal interpretation was that the bubble exists as long as he is in a frightening situation. And he is not comfortable with her because they're not friends and he's trying to impress her. So he is still in a scary situation until they agree to be friends and then he's not scared anymore. And the bubble pops.
That's a much nicer way to do it, because the version of it in my head is slightly creepy and slightly... Yeah, it's questionable.
I think that says more about you than the show.
Yep, sure does.
I feel like we're sassing each other a lot this week.
I mean, I feel like it's going one way. I feel very much like it's going... I don't know if you could think of many examples of me being... me firing back, but I'll be honest, Chris. The only time I fired back is me pointing out that you've been hurting my feelings a lot this week. That's all I'm going to say. Just kidding.
I don't think I've been actually hurting your feelings.
Wiping a single tear away.
I think you knew that recap was poor.
It's not the point, Chris. Support your friends, mate.
Some things you can't support.
Yeah, I reckon Hitler's friends had some questions. Mate, we're behind you, but this is getting out of hand.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus, Dan, it was a bad recap, but I didn't compare you to Hitler.
Anyway, right. Bad. The things, well, I mean, I don't know if I take that as a compliment. Oh, it's not as bad as Hitler. I mean,
it's true, mate. You're not.
Thanks, Chris. Closest thing to a compliment. The closest thing to a compliment I've had from you all fucking episode.
Nadia would have left Hitler a long time ago.
Yes, she would have. Yeah, that's true. Mostly for the mustache. Yuck. What was he thinking? Fashion fail. Am I right, guys? Fashion fail.
I don't think it was his biggest crime.
I don't think it was either, if I'm being honest. Anyway, yay Hitler jokes.
We said this episode was banked. I'm not sure we'll ever release it.
Yeah, this episode isn't going anywhere, is it? Right. Some quotes from you from the original podcast.
Yes, please.
I chuckled when they were in the sea for some reason because I genuinely thought, I don't know how they get out of this. Which is an interesting point. It does seem pretty insurmountable at that point, doesn't it?
There is an element as well of, like, they went pretty deep. Like, they not only went to the bottom of the sea, they then, the bottom of the sea cracked and they went even further down. So, the notion of them just being able to hold breath long enough
to get out the top.
Something.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. That's true. You correctly point out it's nice to see a combination of Steven's powers doing something random, but then you have him getting out of the situation. He genuinely outsmarts it, not in a way that requires his powers.
It's true. I did like that. I still like that.
Yeah, it's a good bit. And here's some of the slightly more critical comments, although these are kind of like vaguely critical rather than outright shitting on it like with cat fingers. The writing wasn't overly subtle on the she's lonely points. I mean, bloody hell, they hammered that home.
Yeah, I kind of stand by that as well. It made me feel... I felt more sorry for her because I know her character and like her character now and stuff.
Yes.
But it is really, really emphasised.
Yeah, it is. It's like every other line, she's just talking about how she's lonely and doesn't have any friends. You felt that she was...
Put a bit of effort in. Put down the book. Start a conversation. Jesus, Connor.
She needs some funky flow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Right, Connor, you're in a donut shop. You see Stephen. What do you say? Right.
You say nothing. You get out your book and start reading. She's shy. I know. I'm only joshing.
Anyway, you said that you felt that she was genuinely fond of Stephen, although it was a bit. I'm having a horrible time. I'm gonna suffocate. This is awful. I can be your friend. Oh, don't worry. I'm having fun. And then you went, all right, Connor, you 360'd that situation, didn't you? That's all from your. That's all a quote from you. So you're basically saying that
think-
Connie was saying, "I'm having a horrible time. We're gonna suffocate. This is awful." And then when Steven says she's gonna be friends, you're like, "Oh, don't worry. I'm having fun." Is her response, which is pretty much what she says.
I think there were moments of fun. Thinking about the oxygen thing, I think I'm really tired and grouchy today and didn't know this until we started recording this. But I didn't get much sleep, to be fair. But
Backtrack.
sorry.
No, you're not backtracking out of you're shitting on me for 45 minutes.
No, I'm not. I was about to rant about why I didn't get much sleep, but I feel like it's my own fault. The air, the oxygen, they used up quite a lot of air by breathing on the bubble and trying to like make the breath in order to write notes to Onion.
I think we've established in the past that Steven's bubble seems to generate air for him to survive in because he's used it out in space for quite long periods of time.
From Connie's point of view, though, from like the suffocation fear, you know something else I've just realised.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think I am. Connie's note to Onion.
Yeah.
She'd have had to have written that backwards, wouldn't she?
Correct.
That's quite clever.
In the trivia for this episode, Chris, it is noted that Connie is shown to be adept at writing backwards.
I hope that comes up again.
It is pretty amazing, and I do love that Steven and Onion continue to not be able to communicate properly. It's like this running joke that Steven just cannot get on the same page as Onion at all. And I love that he thought to draw this really complicated diagram, and Connie just thought to write the word harpoon.
Yeah. It was good. Could I very quickly? It's a tangent, but could I just because it sounded a weird sentence.
Have
could
we
I
not
very
had
quick?
enough of them?
No, I know, but we're getting close to the end. Can I explain why I think it's my fault I didn't get much sleep?
Go on.
So me and a friend went to a gig last night. Went to see Felix Hagen and the Family and Arkles. They were both brilliant, amazing, really great night. Why are you laughing at that?
I didn't make a noise, so I don't know.
Oh, it sounded like you were laughing. Anyway,
I mean,
so
if I did let out air, it was more an exasperated. We're on our fifth story of the podcast that isn't related to Bubble Buddies.
So we've been very concise in Steven Universe base for the last like 3 episodes in a row. So I think people will be fine. So we get in and we discover that the hotel's got room service, and me and my friend had never had room service before. So we were like excited by this, and we weren't even that hungry, but we were like, well, we got to experience room service. So I phone up and I order 2 paninis, and I go, oh, this is gonna sound really weird, but do you have any of those like silver dome tray things, so that like the room service gets revealed? And the woman was like, we've got the silver trays. Yeah, they're not quite as fancy as what you're talking about, but we've got silver domes. Yeah, that's how the room service comes. I was like, brilliant. Me and my mate have never had room service. We're very excited about the silver dome trays. She's like, all right. And then this.
I know I'm on her side here. What the fuck is wrong with you?
And so never had room service. I was excited. So then this guy comes in and he can't speak much English, but he's so lovely and like upbeat and friendly and polite. And we have this whole conversation, and he goes, we were watching the 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, and then Jonathan Ross. And this is like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And at one point he went, you watch TV comedy? You like TV comedy? And I said, yeah. And he said, just Mitchell and Webb, the Peep Show. And I went, yeah, Peep Show's brilliant. And he went, yeah. Have you seen Daredevil on Netflix? I was like, that's a leap. I remember last time I watched Peep Show, I thought, God, I fancy another good British comedy. I'm going to watch Daredevil on Netflix. It was so sweet. He was awesome. And I think he was just genuinely, he knew it wasn't a comedy. He was just genuinely that excited about Daredevil. It was fantastic. So the reason I think it's my fault I didn't sleep is because we then went to bed about 1 o'clock.
These stories have stories within them. This is...
I know. And at 6:50, some dickhead knocked on the door. And then the room next to us put their TV on, and I could hear it really clearly. And then they were talking, and it was kind of like a da 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 da. And I kind of went, oh, if I can hear them this clearly, they could probably hear us at 1 o'clock in the morning that clearly. And I think it was like a revenge knock. I think someone had left the room, deliberately knocked on the door, and then walked back into their room and made shitloads of noise to make a point. So I think, therefore, it's my fault.
I'm not sure. No, I think knocking happens a lot in hotels because people get the wrong room all the time. People are like trying to find their mate's room or whatever. They knock on the wrong door, like one to the left, one to the right. They all look the fucking same. So I think the knock was probably accidental. It was probably the person that went into that room to talk to that person that created the noise thought your room was theirs first. So I don't think the knock would have been revenge. But it wouldn't surprise me if they were like, those fuckers kept me up till 1. I'm talking as loud as I like.
Well, you've done it, haven't you? You remember that the story? You and the girl you used to live next door to at uni.
I don't want to tell another story. Stop it, Chris.
Okay. Basically, long story short, a girl had a party next to Dan, so he got up at 7 o'clock in the morning and played Rock Band really loudly for 3 hours to get revenge, and then left the house to go do some shopping, and the girl returned home and he realised she hadn't even been there.
I was playing I remember putting the speakers up against the wall and playing like metal music really loud. I remember bouncing a tennis ball off the wall that we shared. I remember basically to give the story proper context so it seemed like a monster. I had gone round about 8 times to tell them to stop. The walls were made of paper. It was not a proper building where we were staying. It was a shithole. And she was having this party and they were just going like banging on the walls all night. So I'd been banging on the walls. I'd been yelling. I'd been I'd spoken to them and they just didn't care. They just basically never gave a shit. And I wrote a blog about it back in the day, which is basically just like me just getting really inexplicably angry. Not inexplicably, but like this just went on for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I had something to do the next morning. And then I got my revenge. When they finally got quiet, I left it an hour or two, got a bit of sleep myself, just a little bit, and then I woke up early because I was awake. I wasn't really going to sleep, but I decided to spend a few hours getting revenge on them, who I assumed they were now asleep in that room. So I played very loud music through the walls, bounced a tennis ball off it, played Rock Band, which can be loud if you play the drums because there's a lot of banging on the fake drums. I did a bunch of really loud shit obnoxiously, and then as I was leaving, proud of myself, the person who lives in that flat walked past me on the way in, and she'd just not been in. Basically, they'd gotten quiet when they then had obviously moved on somewhere else, but I didn't realise that. So yeah, I'm a monster.
Great story.
Anyway, goddamn. Right. So Triv.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's one other thing actually I thought was interesting from our previous podcast, Chris. You said, did the monster blow up because it tangled itself, or did the one that's not pearl or amethyst? I wrote down phonetically how you pronounced it. Did she shoot a gem at it because she picked up a gem from the dust? So basically what you were saying was, for a minute, you'd thought that because Garnet is seen in the background picking up a gem and bubbling it, you thought the implication at the time was that she had fired that as a projectile and bubbled it and then was collecting it. But that kind of happens subtly in the background, and I thought it was really interesting you picked up on that. And I sort of gave you a mild spoiler and just said, look, the gems have a gem at their center that is part of their being. These monsters are in some ways the same, and therefore they leave a thing behind, and that's got their essence in it, and she was capturing that so it couldn't, reform. And you're like, okay.
I must admit, on the gem getting poofed, I did think on the rewatch, because I kind of put the way that the deck cracks and then collapses, and then the gem gets poofed, I didn't really like. It looked like it was moving to the notion that the gem had knotted itself, and had knotted itself to such a point that an attempt to catch Stephen and Connie meant that she'd put too much pressure on herself and had then poofed herself that way, which I think makes more sense given what we know it takes to destroy a gem than some wood fell on her.
I disagree, actually.
Then happened.
I think for Peridot that makes sense because she has shown herself to be physically hardy, but other gems have poofed under, single punches from Garnet or slashes from Pearl's sword. Like, physical injury to the form poofs it. I mean, God, I'm pretty sure Amethyst once poofed because she ate a rotten sandwich. So I think it depends on the gem, its level of hardiness, and this is a corrupt gem, which isn't the most stable thing in the world anyway. And a pier collapsing on a person would damage their physical form very likely beyond normal means of repair, unless you were a gem and therefore could retreat into the gem itself. So basically, the pier collapses onto the creature, and it, like I said, damages physical form beyond repair. I actually feel the opposite, in which that I thought it was surprisingly consistent with the existing rules.
Fair enough. There we go. So, any triv that you couldn't tell me last time that you can now?
I don't know about can't tell you last time, but there's just some trivia. We weren't doing trivia at this point, so there's a few bits from the episode. Connie was shown to be proficient at writing backwards, we talked about. Despite containing mostly air, Stephen's bubble sinks in water. This is most likely because the bubble itself has considerable... Considerable? Okay. I think there's a typo there somewhere. Considerable density and mass as evidenced in the episode and later episodes whenever it makes a sound when being hit. So unless there's a word I'm just misreading because I'm half asleep. This is the last episode to air in 2013. The book Connie was reading is The Catcher in the Rye, a controversial book that was banned in many American schools during the 60s and 70s. That's pretty cool. It's a good book. Continuity-wise, we've already talked about this when we rewatched Gem Glow, but when Stephen goes in his freezer to get the cookie cat, Connie's bracelet can be seen in Gem Glow in the freezer. So they obviously planned that a few episodes ahead, which is pretty cool. The Connie line, he was incredible. It was later said again by Cloud Connie in Rose's room. Obviously, Rose's room formed a Connie and was using... I like the idea that it was using bits of Connie that Stephen remembers to form this Connie, and like that's a moment that he really remembers of Connie, because I guess that's the first time she complimented him. Like he was incredible. Like he must have... I imagine he went to sleep thinking about that moment that night. You know what I mean? She said I was incredible. You know, like I like the idea that that meant something to him. Stephen's funky flow phrase returns in the episode Marble Madness. Connie would later wear the outfit she wore in this debut episode again in Fusion Cuisine and Full Disclosure, which is pretty cool. In What's Your Problem, Stephen uses his bubble in the ocean again while looking for Ruby with Amethyst, just like he did with Connie when he first met her in this episode. That's a really recent one as well.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Cool. There we go.
I didn't have much to say on those trivia, so it just ended up being me reading out the trivia. But
yeah, I think that's fine. There you go, guys.
About 10 minutes of Steven Universe conversation, followed by several stories. I hope you enjoyed our discussion of Steven Universe this week, guys.
And who doesn't love stories they've probably already heard before on the podcast?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what's really funny is we were like, oh, well, there's a few episodes we didn't really give the depth and importance to that we could have done. You know, the episodes were only like 13, 14 minutes. In fact, Bubble Buddies is one of our shortest ever. It was 13 minutes long, that podcast. And, the really great thing about these revisits, Chris, is that we can give them the time and effort they really need to be explored upon. And certainly, you know, this episode, if you cut it down to just the talk of the episode, certainly wouldn't also be about 13 minutes long.
No, I think it'd be slightly longer than that.
20. Maybe 20.
You know what, dude? I take a good 60% of the blame for that.
Wow, how noble of you. I'd like to give you more of the blame, but I'll refrain from doing so.
But I just think the episode is like, what is it? Yeah, the episode is about 15 minutes long because of the tangents. Without the tangents, it would have probably just been half an hour, 40 minutes long. I don't think we've missed any chat on the episode, personally.
Sure.
Do you?
I don't know. We never got to find out where the discussion might have led into wider areas, because every time we finished a topic, it was like, now it's tangent time. It was like, you know what it was like? It was like a child that's forced to eat its vegetables before it could play video games. You were like, right, I've eaten a piece of broccoli. Can I play video games for like 5 minutes?
I'm just trying to think about when I last had broccoli.
Okay. Got a tangent about that while we're at it? Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about broccoli. Last time we had broccoli, Chris. I had broccoli like a week ago.
I had broccoli 4 days ago in pasta, actually.
There you go.
There you go. Cool. Take us home.
that's been everything for this week. As always, I was gonna at the end of this week's episode, I made a note to talk about the Patreon, but I'm not gonna do that. I think that's an insult to all of you. I'll do that on a better episode. One we actually deserve your money. But thanks very much for listening, especially if you got this far, you're a hero. For those of you who gave up early, who will never hear this message, I also appreciate your effort, because even if you got a minute through any of this, you probably are a hero also. So yeah, thanks for listening. You can catch us on Twitter. We're at Nothing But Static. We don't use it that often, but we are there. You can get us on the Discord page. Come visit us and chat to us there. You can complain about this episode there. Link in the description below. You can obviously comment on the video below if you want to just yell at us there. There's an email to yell at us, mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk. Chris, specifically, if you want to yell at him directly, he's on Twitter, @CBillingham with 2 M's. Or has that been fixed? I remember you talking about fixing that. Still have 2 M's?
No, I think still has 2 M's.
Fair enough. Billingham with 2 M's, which is not how he spells his name, but the only way he could get that username on Twitter. You can yell at me for not...
I think we concluded not to fix it because I've done 200 podcasts.
Yeah, that's
where...
right. That's right. So C Billingham, 2 M's. I'm at Dan Doolan on Twitter. And you know what? I don't have many followers on Instagram. Find me on Instagram, @that Dan Doolan. If I have actual followers, I might actually post more on it. Why not?
That's a problem.
In fact, I'm going to take a picture of me right now at the mic and post it to Instagram. And if you want to see it, go to @that Dan Doolan. Wait, should I do it as a video? Wait a sec. This will be a good way to waste some time, Chris, because we haven't done enough of that.
Yeah, I'm happy you're tangenting, not me.
Yeah, I figured, I get one, right? I can't take a video while I'm on the phone to you, which is unfortunate. But I'll take a photo. I look a bit rough, but that photo is now on is now on my Instagram. So go look at that and see how rough I look. @that Dan Doolan on Instagram. There you go. Are you on Instagram, Chris? You're C Bills.
I think so. Something Chris Bills, maybe. I can't look. My phone's all shit.
You don't really use Instagram that much.
There. No, I haven't used it in a while, actually. I do keep thinking I should use it more, but then I don't.
So there you go. So plenty of ways for you guys to yell at us for the quality of this episode. And of course, you are welcome to come back next week and try again. I feel like, those competitions they run on crisp packets or sweets in the UK where the rapper will say, like, inside you could win, and then whatever the prize is, and you open up the packet, and it's like, sorry, you didn't win this time. Or I guess if you were looking at one of those competitions, it would say, this is the winning packet. Visit this website to claim or whatever. I feel like that's what this episode was. Like, people opened it, and it was like, sorry, you didn't win a decent episode of Steven University this week. Instead, you've got Dan and Chris bickering for the first 5 minutes, then the most digressive discussion they've ever had. Anyway.
It's been alright.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. I've been Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Doolan.
And we'll see you next week for another edition of Steven University.
Hiatus watch.